Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman, and this is a video response going out to the Atheist Challenge. The challenge the atheist can't face by Samuel Zwemer. And he preaches a pretty good sermon for about 15 minutes on anti-theists and extreme atheism and bitterness. And first of all, I'd like to say, if it wasn't for the religious extremists, there would not be anti-theists, and there would not be extreme atheists. So they're two opposite sides of extremism, doing the same thing to each other. So just like there are religious preachers, religious missionaries, religious proselytizers, there are also atheists that fill all those categories. And it's pretty interesting. So I would think that with his bachelor's in theology, he would have studied the Old Testament, because if you go there, it would be made clear that knowledge is extremely important. In Hosea, it talks about this. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Thou hast forgotten the laws of thy God, I will also forget thy children. It's pretty straightforward. And according to Judaism, followers of Christianity are idolaters. So, not getting mixed up in that, he talks about getting rid of bitterness and how atheists and agnostics and people remain bitter. I think that Plato talked quite a bit about it long before Christ. And I've said it in other videos that the Good Samaritan could have been an atheist, and also the prodigal son could have been an atheist. Because a lot of times, friends, people think that you need Jesus to discover the situation that you're in. You need Jesus to tell you or to help you make the realization that the path down the road of vice that you're traveling is no good for you, and you need to turn around and backtrack and pursue the highest forms of virtue. That's not true, friends. The prodigal son did not quote Romans 10:9 and 10 when he turned and went back to his father's house. And also, when the Good Samaritan left the gentleman who was beaten and robbed at the inn, he wasn't doing it for the selfish desire and the selfish treasures of heaven. He did good for the sake of doing good, and he was pursuing the highest form of virtue. So you say, wait a minute, what is that? Well, again, in the Old Testament, he has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with your God. So I think that atheists can walk next door, and they can talk to the people they have wronged, and in a way repent and ask for forgiveness, because life is very short, friends, and we need to do the best that we can while we can and pursue the highest forms of virtue for not only the good of ourselves, but for the good of our community, without the selfish desire of heaven getting in the way. So, I don't know. That's how I take care of my bitterness. I came out of fundamentalism. So yeah, I was bitter for a time. But then I realized I didn't want to be an anti-fundamentalist. But, as I said in the beginning of the video, those kinds of extremist views would not exist among atheists if they did not exist among theists. So I guess Comes a story about a bunch of Buddhist monks sitting around the fire. And they take a vow of silence. And finally, one sneezed. And the one next to him says, "Bless you." And the guy across from him says, "Ah, you spoke." So I guess in short, when pointing out the mistakes of others, you might be guilty of committing the same thing yourself. So don't be too hard on yourselves, atheists, and don't take these sermons all that seriously, because pursuing the highest forms of justice and the highest forms of virtue at times would be better than pursuing a life of Christ anyways, because that's what Christ was pursuing, the highest forms of virtue. So don't mistake the end of your finger for the moon. Go for the moon. And I think everything will come out okay. Take care, friends, and remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking